Hey, welcome to the Spector Creative channel, where we try to look at the toy industry and understand the why of things happen. Because, well, I've been in the toy industry professionally and as a collector. And before I became an evil overlord, destroying collector dreams around the world by denying them the action figures they wanted to collect because of my own horrible agenda for world domination, I was a writer. I started in the toy industry as a writer. It was the first job I got. My introduction was with Mattel as a writer in the Hot Wheels group. I came up with all the names for the different cars and planes and trucks and etc., and wrote copy on the back of the play sets. I came up with names for original Hot Wheels, like Straight Pipes here, which was a Larry Wood creation, which getting to name a Larry Wood car is an honor into itself. If you don't know who Larry Wood is, definitely Google him. And I worked on things like Modifighters, where it was more of a Hot Wheels action figure line, and I got to come up with all of the characters and write the bios, and that, as an action figure fan, was a total dream come true, because who doesn't want to come up with the names for action figures and create their backstory and, well, occasionally get to drop in one of your favorite names as a character, and that's how Mattel wound up owning the word Spector, which got reused. But that's not important right now. Before I was in the toy industry, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, specifically for a company called Allergan. They are a large international pharmaceutical company that develops medication for a variety of ailments. And specifically, I worked in their skincare and eye care department, or brand, I guess you could say. Those were the brands that I worked on. And I worked on glaucoma accounts. I could tell you more about glaucoma than you ever wanted to know. It's like I have a degree in glaucoma, that, I could probably diagnose people at this point. And one of the products I worked on was called Lumigan, which is one of their medications to treat glaucoma. And I would do things like this print ad here that would run in medical journals. Well, when I was working in pharmaceutical advertising, my very first boss that I had, who is one of my favorite people in the world, and she is an amazing, amazing human being, not just because she gave me my start, but she was very, very wise, she taught me about the concept of weasel words and the importance of understanding how they work and what they're used for, and sort of the art of the weasel word. And no, I'm not talking about the sounds a weasel makes. A weasel word is actually, it's a legitimate thing. They're essentially words that have iffy meanings that you can use to hedge your meaning or hedge your sentence so that you're either saying more or a little less than you might actually want to convey. And it's sort of up to the reader to interpret. And if you go back, you can look at the exact wording and say, yeah. So example, some people say is an excellent example of a weasel word. Who are these people? What do you mean some people say? Is that like Bob in janitorial? Is that Edna in the typing pool? Who are these people that say these things? So anytime you see that phrase, some people say, that's a weasel word. Okay, well, this toy is not about the medical industry and advertising. It is about the toy industry. So let's change gears and head back to that. Now, I am absolutely guilty of using weasel words when I communicate with fans, like when I would say, keep reading the bios, which I know would drive people insane because, well, I couldn't give away bio information. Or I would say, well, that's a logistical issue because there were things I couldn't go into. And why is it that I use these, and why is it that the toy industry uses these kind of weasel words all the time in fan communication? There's a few reasons. One is legal. There may be something legally a toy company can't talk about. It may have to do with a procedure. It may have to do with a contract. It may have to do with a patent. There's all sorts of reasons, and instead of breaking a legal clause, they may need to use weasel words. It may also be used to preserve the surprise of content, because they may be under contract with a studio, it may be their own IP, or whatever the reason is, they don't want to create a spoiler for upcoming content, a movie, a comic, a TV show, a pantomime show. Another reason is they may not want to look weak, if you will. They may want to hold on to power, because the moment you start looking weak, like you don't know what you're talking about, well, that opens you up to bargain tactics and a power game. So a good example of this from the real world, well, not the toy industry, it's in the real world, is I'm a big fan of Jack Ryan. And I don't mean like all of these millions of actors that have played Jack Ryan. Well, I guess if there was one I was choose, it would definitely be Harrison Ford. But less so the movies and the content, and I'm talking more about the original novels written by Tom Clancy. Yes, they were novels before they were movies and Amazon shows. Okay, anyway, one of my favorite novels in the Jack Ryan series, and there's like over 25 of them at this point, was Executive Orders, which is, I know, spoiler alert, when Jack Ryan becomes president of the United States. Yes, sorry, spoiler alert for a 25-year-old book. So when he becomes president, one of his advisors tells him that the first thing he needs to do, or one of the first things, is he needs to declare that he's running for re-election. And Jack's like, well, I don't even know if I want to run for re-election. I didn't even want to be president in the first place. Yeah, go read the book to find out how he becomes president. It's a whole series of events. But he's encouraged, or pretty much told, he needs to tell the public he's running for re-election because that's going to help him maintain his power. That if he looks like he's a one-term president and he's not going to follow through, it's going to make him look weak. And whether or not he runs for president again isn't important. The point is, it's how the international community views him that is important. And pretty much all presidents do this, except for, of course, James K. Polk, who was austere, severe, and he held few people dear, but he accomplished all his goals in one term and never ran for re-election. But other than him, presidents run for re-election, or at least say they are, right away. So let's take this concept and now go back and look at the toy industry. So let's look at a few different Q&As that toy companies have done. We'll start off with a Hasbro one here. And looking in, you can kind of see the Weasel Words and where they're hidden. They'll say things like, there's a chance that. And what this does is it creates the opportunity that maybe this will happen, maybe it won't. Or let's look at the other side of the coast with a Mattel Q&A done on Whoosh recently for Masters of the Universe Origins. And in regard to, is Origins going to continue? Well, there's no intention to. Well, of course there's no intention to, but it might still happen. Again, and I don't do enough stuff with Transformers, so let's do a Transformers Q&A. I really should do more Transformers videos for the Transformers fans out there. And again, they'll say things, they'll use Weasel Words, so they'll say, we would love to see that. Meaning, of course they'd love it, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And it's not that they're intentionally trying to mislead fans. I mean, who would do that, right? But it's more that they don't want to be caught in an outright lie. So a Weasel Word is a way of saying something to give you enough wiggle room that if it goes that way, it was true, and if it doesn't, well, we didn't have the intention of doing that. The internet never forgets. We all know that. It's like an elephant, right? And it always wants revenge. And the same way that the internet is forever, Weasel Words become a tool to ensure you have just a little bit of wiggle room. I mean, Weasel Words are a good thing in the end because they prevent misinformation, direct misinformation. It's just that little bit of wiggle. And, let's not forget that keeping wildlife, amphibious rodent for, domestic within the city, that ain't legal either. And as long as you understand that, you understand Weasel Words. Thanks for watching. Leave me your comments below. I always answer back. And share this video with others. It helps the channel a ton. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.